We're going to take a look at evaluating expressions with a calculator today. And so we're going to start off looking at this expression right here, 6x plus 5. And whenever you evaluate, over to the side, they tell you that x is equal to 5 and y is equal to 4. So what we're going to need to do is to substitute the 5 in for x and the 4 in for y. But instead of doing this by hand, we're going to use a calculator. And so whenever you type this in, we start off with 6. When you plug in 5 for this x, then we're going to plug it in parentheses, especially when there's a number on the outside of that x. So when there's already a number there, we need to put this in parentheses. So I'm going to put 5 in parentheses plus 5, and then for y, once again, we're going to put parentheses because you got the 5 on the outside, and put a 4 in there. Once this is typed in and it looks exactly like your expression, hit enter and you've got your answer. Your answer is 50. Okay, taking a look at another one. Now this one is one that a lot of kids miss because whenever they plug this in, they don't want to plug everything in. And the mistake always happens right here at this negative r. Now, one thing I also want to make sure you know is that these brackets, they're just parentheses. And so whenever we put these brackets in, we'll put them in as parentheses. And so to begin with, we're going to want to put a negative sign because it's got this negative sign right here. And then we go to the r. Now the r is negative 5. Now, because there's not necessarily a number out in front of this, we don't have to put parentheses here. And so I'm not going to put parentheses, but I do have to put a negative 5. And this is what gets a lot of kids. They just want to put one negative. They say, well, there's already a negative there, so I'm just going to put 5. You have to have both of these or you will get the wrong answer. Then we'll put the brackets. Well, that's just parentheses. Then it gives me another parentheses. And then P is 5 minus Q, and Q is negative 4. Now you have to make sure that you put a negative here and not another minus sign. And then for this minus sign, you have to make sure it's a minus sign and not a negative. So you have to keep these separate. Then we'll close out our parentheses right here. And then a minus, parentheses, R is negative 5, minus Q is negative 4. And then here at the end, we close parentheses and close parentheses. There's two of them. So close parentheses, close parentheses. Now if you type this in exactly how that looked, then when you hit enter, you should get the right answer. And so coincidentally, our answer again is 50. But the important thing is that at the beginning, we make sure we put those two negative signs. I have a lot of kids that think that the answer to this is negative 50 because they just put one negative. Okay, looking at the next problem, this is the same thing, except this time we've got decimals for x and y, and that's okay because we're using the calculator. So it's not a big deal. So we'll put 3, and because x is next to a number, we're going to put it in parentheses and put 3.5, close your parentheses, plus 14 minus 2, and then for y, we're going to put in 8.2. So once again, having this calculator makes this very easy, but you have to make sure you plug it in properly. So enter, and our answer is 8.1. Okay, looking at another one. Now this is considered a function question, not necessarily evaluating, but you do it the same way. And so whenever we have a function question, what it says is we have f of x. Well then, when we look at, or it says find f of 1, you can see that this had f of x. This says f of negative 1. So the x became a negative 1. Well, what that tells us to do is after the equal sign, all of this right here, we're going to put a negative 1 everywhere there's an x. Now, once again, there's a lot of kids that miss this because they don't want to put this in parentheses. And whenever you've got a squared, the number has to go in parentheses. And so we're going to put negative parentheses, negative 1. Now, the exponent does not go inside the parentheses because it's not a part of the x. Then we square it, minus, then parentheses, negative 1, close parentheses. Now this set of parentheses right here wasn't necessary because there wasn't a number in front of our x, but I went ahead and put it in there anyways. And then minus 1. And our answer should be negative 1. Now I want to show you what happens when you don't put these parentheses right here. So negative, still got that. And I'm going to put negative 1 squared. So no parentheses around this, minus negative 1. Now, like I said, the fact I didn't put parentheses around this doesn't hurt because I could have not put parentheses here. And then minus 1. But this parentheses here is really going to change this, and it turns it into a positive 1. And so you must have parentheses whenever there's a number on the outside, or if you've got an exponent, then it has to be inside of parentheses. Taking a look at our last one, and this one is actually two separate problems. Once we're going to put in negative 3, and then once we're going to put in 6. And this calculator is neat in the sense that I can type this in as a fraction, 2 over 3, make it look exactly like the fraction. Now I've got a number on the outside, so in parentheses I'm going to put negative 3, close parentheses, and then plus 9. Hit enter, and my answer is 7. But what's neat about this calculator is I need to put in 6. Well, instead of retyping this whole thing in, I can just arrow up until that's highlighted, hit enter, and it gives it to me again, but this time I can go edit it. And I don't want this to be negative, so I'm going to delete the negative, and I'm going to change the 3 to a 6. Hit enter, and our answer is 13. So we get both of our answers fairly easy by just arrowing up and highlighting it and hitting enter, and it allows us to edit our problem. And so it's important to understand whenever you're evaluating how important it is whenever you're supposed to put parentheses in and how to use the calculator.